Okay, it is officially the first week of April. And for those of you who have been around with me for some time, you know that this is the time of year where one of my favorite reports is finally released. And that is the NAR 2025 Home Buyers and Sellers Generational Trend Report. So every year, and it's usually right at the end of March, sometimes at the very beginning of April, they have a massive report. Like, guys, I'm talking, it's over 130 pages. Now, about 100 of those are good data that really break down the different cohorts of different generations and their buying and selling patterns, like what they look for in a real estate agent, how they found their real estate agent, what percent of each demographic are the ones who made up majority of the buyers or the sellers, and what's their motivation, what's the why, and what were the stalls. You guys know with any great marketing strategy, we have to first and foremost get clear on the who. And there's two parts to the who. The first part is you. Who are you? And what value do you bring to your clients? What is your unique factor? What are the things that make you different than any other loan officer or mortgage professional in your market? What are those things? Notice I didn't say better, but just what makes you different. And if you're saying all the same things that your competitors are saying or that we hear others say on channels that we interview, then no, that is not unique and different. We're all just regurgitating basically the same thing. And worse, some of us are saying we do things that we don't actually do. So now is the time to get really clear on who you are and why you matter, why you do what you do, what does your service, how does it help create change or solve problems in the world? And the second part of the who is who are you seeking to serve? Who is like that avatar, your ideal client? It's knowing what is going on in their world. What things do they care about? What are their challenges? This is very different from a boomer versus a millennial. Like someone my age right now with kids where none of them are driving yet, who's time poor and you're being pulled a million different directions and you're building your career. We have a little bit different set of priorities and needs and communication methods versus maybe someone who's already retired and an empty nester and longing for connection with their kids and maybe not looking for independence. So we've got to get really clear on those who's before we start creating a more effective and connecting strategic social media plan. So that is why I love this time of year. It's also March Madness time. We have the Masters coming up this week. And let me just make a small little like segue here, guys. If you have noticed your reach is down, this is where there's some variables that can impact reach. And I have some clients that either they freak out and they're like, oh my gosh, maybe I should not be putting in so much effort. Like it doesn't seem to be working, blah, 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 blah. And then others who understand that just like with the Super Bowl or with the election, like when it's March Madness time, more and more people, their feeds, guess what's showing on their feeds? March Madness, because more and more people consume or are interested in that topic right now. Same thing with the Masters. So it's going to be a little bit harder to get your content seen or get the visibility depending on what's trending and what's going on in pop culture that could be making it just a little bit more difficult. So there's two angles here. You either do a play on words and you use like the hashtag holidays, or you use the Masters to your advantage and you think of something clever, like relating how buying a home with you is like getting a hole in one at the Masters. I don't know. But if you can use some of the buzz trend, just what's in the news and just the pop culture, then it helps with the visibility because there are times like Super Bowl or elections or sometimes when that whole Chris Rock and Will Smith thing occurred, like you saw memes that lasted forever. That's why. So don't always beat yourself up, assuming that it's your content or that you suck. Remember, we don't do this for hand claps. We do this to accelerate trust, to reduce the amount of rate shoppers, to reduce objections, and increase conversion. And I know those are hard metrics to ever see, but a lot of the trust and the conversion that because of your content where people then contact you, you got them, guys, you hooked them. It's like a fish, hook, line, and sinker. You got them. That's end of the rant. Let's dive into the report. I'm going to share my screen, but I'm not going to go over every single page. What I do want you guys to do is think about which of these pages could you repurpose as your Friday value bomb emails, like to your agent partners? Which of these pieces of data do you think would help them the most this year? If we're trying to put a bullseye around who are the people who are moving, buying and selling, who should I focus on? I want you to take that mindset when we go through this report, not only for your own hyper-local market and data, but also so that we can be a true partner to those who send us business. So I made a few notes in here that I want to make sure we go over before I just dive into this. Y'all know my strategy when I consume throughout the week, or if I'm listening to a podcast or something that I think is excellent, I put it in the notes section of my phone. And these are, I have a section for notes for the week that help with fueling these Friday coaching videos that I do. And then I also have some for just content ideas. So it's a great strategy that while you consume, you have a place to brain dump your ideas. Okay, so here's the first, let me show you what the report looks like. I'm just so excited. So I will make sure to link this in the email and you'll see, I love how they break down like one. So the oldest to youngest, guys, you have silent generation, and then you'll notice they broke down the boomers into two groups as well as the millennials, because those are the two largest. So they have older boomers, younger boomers, then you have Gen X in between, and then you have older millennials, younger millennials, and then Gen Z. So a lot of people get confused, like, are millennials X or where's Gen Y? So again, thinking oldest to youngest, think of Gen X, Gen Y, so X, Y, Z. Millennials are sometimes also called Gen Y. So this shows you buyers and sellers, the amount of buyers and sellers from last year from each age group. But what I like more is they actually break it down with their ages right here. So they have this both for just the home buyers, which is really what we care about, right? But when you're sending out your value bomb emails, you may want to do one that's just age of home buyers and then one of age of home sellers. So let's take a look. Go back to my cheat sheet of notes. There's just like a few bullet points here that I thought was worthy and probably a little bit surprising based off this year's report and last year. So the first one is that the baby boomers actually surpassed the millennials in leading in the home buyer category. So if you combine the younger boomers to older boomers and you take these 26% plus 16%, and this again tells you the median age in the group, but it says in a significant change, baby boomers, so that's age 60 to 78, now represent 42% of home buyers. That's overtaking the millennials where their share dropped. So last year it was 38% and it dropped to 29% this year. So boomers, if you're looking at who do I target from a home buying standpoint, now again, take this with a grain of salt and do your own research on your hyper local market, but this would put a big bullseye around, all right, if the younger boomers, so anyone from 60 to 69, like what would be causing them to move right now? What's going on in their world? What challenges are they having? How would I need to alter my message architecture? Where do they consume content? Okay, these are all things that matter when we're looking at how do we connect and reach and earn trust from these individuals. Let's see. So the shift is largely due to boomers' ability to leverage their home equity, which they are using that equity to then pay cash. I know we don't like to hear that, do we? So that would also be my cue if maybe I need to do a class to my real estate partners or make some social media content of why you should never pay cash for a home. I personally don't think you should ever pay off a home. That's a whole different story at a different time, but I would leverage it and use it as a hedge for inflation. And so maybe giving some financial literacy classes around why you wouldn't want to pay cash or maybe understand why they are. So the second bullet point here is the decline in first-time home buyers. Now, I know some of you love your first-time home buyers. I loved first-time home buyers, but you need to know that the proportion of first-time home buyers has now dropped to 24% of the market, whereas last year it was 32% of the market. So it's dropped significantly. Obviously, this is due to affordability challenges, the inventory challenges, the interest rates, down payment, student loans, increased credit card debt. Like, how do these people save and even get into a home? The third bullet point here is the increase of multi-generational home purchases. It was on a record high and it made up of 17% of the entire purchase market. So that's up from the year before, it was 14%. So we probably need to do some educational classes around the multi-generational home and how to buy when you have multi-generations under one roof. Maybe looking at some of the best communities in your area. Gen X, just for the record, is the one that leads with this trend. So they're the ones that are typically buying the multi-generational homes for their aging parents. And then the last bullet point I had here was the notable portion, and you'll see this in the report down in the financing section, but the number of older buyers who were purchasing homes entirely with cash, 50% of older boomers and 40% of younger boomers, highlighting their financial advantage in the current market. So I thought that was a pretty big stat for the boomers, and the fact that they're the majority of the home buyers and they're paying cash. So that means that you could be helping a little first-time home buyer and they're going up against someone who's doing an all cash offer. Okay, so are you prepared for that? So here's what I would focus on. If I'm going to create marketing for the boomers, so the boomers make up 53% of the sellers. They also make up 42% of the buyers. It is the single largest group buying and selling for 2025. Most are buying with cash and most are downsizing to move closer to family. And they are driving the repeat buyer market for sure. So some marketing angles that you could consider is things like tired of going up and down stairs, or tired of walking past empty rooms, or ready for a simplified lifestyle. And then creating educational content, maybe around reverse mortgages, legacy planning, 1031 exchanges, downsizing benefits, etc. Now, the platforms. So where do boomers consume the most? You may not be surprised, but it's Facebook and email newsletters. They also like video podcast or explainer videos, and they like in-person community seminars and lunch and learns. So not Zooms. They like the face-to-face community seminars and events. So for the Gen Xers, note that the Gen Xers have the highest amount of income. They're also the most diverse buyers. We already learned that they are typically, they're leading the multi-generational home purchases, but they are definitely your trade up buyers. So they're the ones moving up. They're tired of that starter home. They're running out of room. They are in usually leadership positions at work, a little bit more established in their careers. For them, I would angle things like ready to move up. Let's talk space. Let's talk privacy. Let's talk value. I would showcase different multi-gen financing options or even home upgrades like energy efficient or amenities in different communities that you guys know are in your local area. And I would definitely position yourself as a financial advisor type mortgage pro, not just your like cookie cutter loan officer. Now, where do they consume the most? They are on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. They also will go on different blogs, and they are researchers. So they may go in and type in upgrading your home or multi-gen homes. So if you're trying to reach that audience, that's where I would focus. And then last but not least, let's talk about the younger millennials. So ages 26 to 34. Remember, of the younger millennials, 71% in that age group were first-time homebuyers, and 33% received down payment help from family or friends. So they're highly educated, 78% have a bachelor's degree, 25% moved from a family member's home, so they weren't renting prior. That's majority were then renting. And they care deeply about job convenience, commuting cost, and affordability. So emphasizing things, and I know not all of you can do these or love them, but down payment assistance programs, low down payment loan programs like FHA Home Ready, cost-saving homeownership benefits, and then they love to consume on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. They are very mobile first type consumers, so your reels, your stories, and then I would include lead magnets for this group. First-time homebuyers webinars or affordability checklist type lead magnets, and just think of like creative ways to afford your first home even in today's market. But those are like the main cohorts of how to get a little bit more strategic of who are we creating content for, who are we trying to attract. Like a bonus segment, and for some of you who are bilingual, like going after the Hispanic population would be very smart. Only other item that I noted was just if you had to break down the three main cohorts of the boomers, I would do it from ages 60 to 64. and understand that they're still transitioning into retirement. Then you have 65 to 70. They're in the retired cash buyers lifestyle focused group. And then the older boomers, so 71 to 78, where they're downsizing, they're legacy driven, and they're health focused. That's it, guys. We got to know the who, the two parts of the who, before we start going into the how and the why. All right. So we got NCAA championships coming up. We got the women first and then the men's. Then we have the US Masters coming up this week. We have Siblings Day and Pet Day. And then we have Coachella. Anyone going to the Coachella Festival? All right, y'all have a great weekend and we'll talk next week.